Lily starts her morning as usual at Brooks Bakery, where she has been associated for years. She loves her job, from greeting familiar customers to introducing new cakes to the oven. She always works with a cheerful attitude and a bright smile, which makes her a familiar face and loved by both colleagues and customers. But that morning, the peace was quickly broken. A middle-aged woman, wearing an expensive coat, walked into the salon. With cold eyes, the woman looked at Lily from head to toe, her eyes containing obvious judgment. Although she noticed the discomfort in that gaze, Lily still smiled brightly and greeted her in a friendly way. "Good morning. How can I help you today?" Instead of responding politely, the woman frowned, looked annoyed on her face, and let go of a small but deliberately loud sentence that was loud enough for everyone around her to hear. "I want to be served by others." Those words were like a sharp blade cutting through the warm atmosphere in the bakery. Lily's smile paused for a moment, but only for a short second. She quickly regained her composure and replied in a gentle but no less determined voice. "I am currently in charge of the counter. I am very happy to serve you." The woman still refused to give in, crossed her arms in front of her chest and inched forward, her voice full of contempt. "I don't mean to be offensive, but I don't want you to touch my food. Is there anyone else who can help me?" Her words caused the entire bakery to fall into a heavy state of silence. The customers around him, who were busy choosing cakes or drinking coffee, also began to pay attention. Some people looked at each other silently, discomfort evident on their faces. Lily clearly felt everyone's eyes falling on her. Her heart beat faster, but she told herself to stay calm. She took a deep breath and responded with rare patience. "I'm sorry, but I'm currently the only cashier at the counter. If you want to order, I'm ready to help." However, the woman had no intention of stopping. She swept her eyes across the room, her voice louder as if looking for support. "Is there a manager here? I need to talk to the person responsible." Lily still stood there, her hand gently resting on the counter, trying to keep her calm even though she felt a dull sadness in her heart. She knew she wasn't just dealing with a demanding client, but with a blatantly displayed stigma. The space in the bakery seems to be suffocated by the tense atmosphere. Lily remained upright behind the counter, trying to keep her calm appearance even though she was a little disturbed in her heart. She clearly felt that all eyes were watching her. Some people showed sympathy, but there were also curious looks, waiting to see where things would go. The woman, sensing that she was attracting attention, continued to push things higher. She called out loudly, "Where is the manager? Is there anyone in charge?" The kitchen door opened, and Kevin, the bakery manager, walked out. He was a thin man with silver hair and a face that often shone with a calm and friendly look. But when Kevin's gaze swept over the situation in front of him, he immediately realized that this was not a small problem. "What's wrong?" asked Kevin, his voice calm but clear, as he approached the counter. The woman, as if she had found an ally, breathed a sigh of relief and spoke up, her voice full of pride. "Finally, someone will come out. I want to be served by another employee, not this girl." Kevin caught a glimpse of Lily, who was still keeping a calm expression but his eyes were a little tired. Then he turned to the woman, carefully keeping a neutral tone. "Lily is one of our best employees. If you are not satisfied with something, please explain it clearly so that I can help you." The woman hesitated, as if she didn't want to say the reason directly in front of the crowd. But under the pressure of Kevin and the gazes around her, she bent down and whispered in a contemptuous voice, "I don't want her to touch my food. I don't see." "Appropriate." Kevin frowned, but he quickly understood the problem. He straightened up, his voice became sharper. "Let me be clear. You don't want Lily to serve you because of the color of her skin, do you?" Kevin's words seemed to make the whole room hold their breath. The woman blushed, stammering and trying to refuse. "I just think it would be better if there was someone else." Kevin interrupted, his voice decisive and not letting her down. "We don't discriminate here. Lily is a professional, dedicated and fully qualified employee to serve customers. If you don't accept it, I'm forced to ask you to leave the shop." The space seemed to freeze for a few seconds. The woman opened her mouth, not believing that she had just been called out like that in front of everyone. But instead of retreating, she tried to struggle in anger. Is this how you treat customers? I am a guest. I have the right to be served by someone I feel comfortable with. Kevin crossed his arms in front of his chest. His voice was still calm but exuded determination. And I have the right to protect my employees from discriminatory acts. If you continue, I will have to ask you to leave. The woman turned to seek approval from the other customers, but all she received was an annoyed look and a shake of her head. A man standing near the counter said loudly, "It's you who makes everyone uncomfortable." Another woman interjected, "If you don't like it, you can go somewhere else. No one here supports that kind of behavior." Hearing those words, Lily remained silent, but her eyes flashed with gratitude. She felt the support of everyone around her, and that helped her stay calm. Her heart was beating fast, but not out of fear but because of the belief that she was not alone. The woman still stubbornly refused to give in. "That's ridiculous. You are all bullying me just because I made a simple request." Lily finally spoke up, her voice not loud but clear enough for all to hear. "I don't need anyone to protect me, but I want to be respected. If you feel like I'm incompetent just because of the color of my skin, it reflects more about you than about me." Lily's words were like a blow that cut straight into the woman's complacency. She was silent, her eyes fluctuating between anger and shame. The space fell silent again, only whispers of appreciation from a few customers. From the corner of the room, a tall man in a suit walked over. He was slow but full of authority, and his voice was warm. "I'm a regular here, and one of the reasons I come back so often is because of the staff, especially Lily. She is always professional, dedicated, and courteous. It's unacceptable for you to treat her like that." The woman choked on her words, and could only stare at him helplessly. But now it was clear that she had no one on her side. The atmosphere in the bakery was quiet at first, but soon after, whispers began to erupt. The gazes that had stopped at curiosity now turned to obvious dissatisfaction. A man stood near the counter, crossed his arms and frowned, and raised a loud voice to break the silence. "It is you who is the one who causes annoyance here. People are just doing their job." His words were like a spark that sparked consensus from other customers. A middle-aged woman, holding a bag of cakes she had just bought, shook her head uncomfortably and continued, "It's a shame. When did you still behave like that?" Each word was like a knife that touched the narcissism of the woman who caused the fight. She turned around, her eyes full of indignation, looking at the people who had just spoken, trying to keep her voice in rebuttal. "You don't understand. I'm just protecting my rights. This is a personal matter. It has nothing to do with anyone else." This time, a man in an elegant suit stepped up from the waiting row. He adjusted his glasses. His voice was calm but no less powerful. "Her personal interests do not allow her to insult the dignity of others. We are here because of the friendly atmosphere and dedicated service of this bakery. Behaviors like yours are ruining a good morning." Some customers nodded in agreement. A young girl wearing headphones also took off her headphones and did not hesitate to say loudly, "That's right. If she feels dissatisfied, go elsewhere. No one here wants to witness this rudeness." The woman glared, her face flushed with anger and embarrassment. She tried to find some kind of ally in the crowd, but received only cold or bored stares. A boy accompanied by his mother even whispered, his voice immature but full of curiosity, "Mom, why is that girl so angry?" The mother quickly bent down and replied softly but enough for all to hear, "Because she doesn't know how to behave, son." The mother's brief words made many people laugh slightly. The wave of people's reaction was like a wall of pressure, leaving the woman unable to do anything but stand motionless, her hands clenched into her bag. Meanwhile, Lily was still standing quietly behind the counter. Although she tried to appear calm on the outside, she couldn't help but be moved when she felt everyone's unanimity. She took a quick look around the shop and saw encouraging eyes and warm smiles from customers. A small wave of faith and strength surged within her, helping her stay calm in the face of a stressful situation. Seemingly noticing that there was no one to support her, the woman suddenly raised her voice, trying to hold on to the last bit of authority. "I'll never go back to this place again." A man who was sipping a cup of coffee nearby shrugged his shoulders slightly and replied casually, "We don't expect you to come back either." His words made many people laugh, making the atmosphere in the shop a little lighter. The last woman turned around, walked quickly out of the shop, leaving behind whispers and a sigh of relief. When the door closed behind her, the whole bakery seemed to come to life with joy and harmony. An elderly customer looked at Lily and smiled kindly. "You're very good. Don't let people like that discourage you." Lily replied with a slight nod, her voice full of gratitude but firmness. "Thank you, everyone. This means a lot to me." In the heavy atmosphere, everyone's eyes were focused on the woman who caused the trouble. Lily took a deep breath, trying to calm her heart that was beating wildly. From the beginning until now, she has suppressed her hurt and kept silent so as not to make things more stressful. But this time, as the insults continued to be directed at her, Lily knew she couldn't stay silent forever. She raised her head, her eyes meeting the woman's gaze, not with anger, but with a calm but resolute look. Lily's voice rang out, not loud but clear, cutting through the whispers in the bakery. "I don't need protection." These words made everyone around him silent. Even the other woman stopped, her eyes were confused. Lily continued. Every word seemed to be well thought out but no less sharp. "But I deserve respect." Lily's posture was straighter, and her hands were firmly on the counter. Although her heart was still pounding, her voice did not tremble. She looked directly at the woman, and couldn't avoid it. "If you think I can't do my job just because of the color of my skin, that doesn't say anything about me. It only reflects who she is." The whole room fell into absolute silence. Lily's words were not just a protest. They also carry the power of self-esteem and consistency. The other woman was stunned for a moment, as if she had just been pushed into a situation where she didn't know how to react. Her face turned pale, her lips twitched as if she wanted to respond, but no words escaped. All around, customers began to nod their heads in agreement. A few people whispered brief praises. "That's great. That's right." Lily kept her eyes steadfast, not gloating or angry. She just wants to protect her self-esteem without having to hurt anyone else. But in her heart, a sense of relief spread. She knew at this moment she had regained her own voice. In the end, the woman could only stand still, unable to find an argument to refute. The atmosphere in the bakery, which had been suffocating before, now seemed to be changing, leaning towards Lily. The woman, after being turned away by the whole room, stood still in place. Her hands trembled, clenching her handbag as if it were the only lifebuoy in the midst of a storm of critical eyes. The initial anger on her face gradually gave way to confusion and worry. Realizing that there was no one to defend her, her eyes wandered around the room, trying to find an ally. But all she saw were cold and judgmental looks. Kevin, still standing firmly behind the counter, kept a calm but decisive look. His voice rang out, not loud but clear and weighty. "You are the problem here, and we do not tolerate any discriminatory behavior in this bakery. If you can't apologize to Lily and behave respectfully, I have to ask you to leave here." The woman turned pale when she heard that. She pursed her lips, her eyes fluctuating between indignation and embarrassment. It seemed that she was going to say something to refute, but before she could open her mouth, a customer spoke up from the side of the bakery. "I think you should go, before you humiliate yourself further." That voice was like a drop of water overflowing the glass, making the woman lose all her remaining confidence. She took a deep breath, but the breath trembled and was not enough to hide the worry on her face. She shouted one last sentence, her voice interrupted by anger. "You will regret it. I will make sure the whole city knows how bad this place is." Kevin just shrugged his shoulders and replied calmly, "Just do it. But you should know that there are many people here who have documented the whole thing." Immediately, she turned her head and realized that a series of phones were being raised, The screen was bright with the recording icon. The woman was stunned. Her gaze changed from panic to disappointment. A few seconds passed in silence before she hurriedly turned around and staggered out of the bakery. The doorbell jingles as she pushes the door open, leaving silence for a few seconds. Then, suddenly, the room exploded with applause. Lily stood there, momentarily surprised. She didn't think she would receive such great support. A woman with a child in her arms approached the counter and smiled warmly. "You're amazing. Thank you for teaching us a lesson in courage." The others also stepped forward, each giving Lily a compliment or a look of respect. One man, who had been protecting Lily earlier, winked and said, "You're the reason I always come back to this shop." Kevin put his hand on Lily's shoulder, his eyes shining with pride and tenderness. He spoke quietly enough for her to hear. "You did a great job. If you need to rest, just tell me." But Lily shook her head and smiled slightly. "I'm fine. Thank you, but I want to keep working." She returned to the counter and began to serve the next customer as if nothing had happened. But in her heart, she felt a sense of pride that she had never had before. From a distance, she saw a girl about 10 years old approaching, her eyes full of admiration. "Little girl, I think you're very brave." Lily smiled, knelt down to be at eye level with the little girl. "Thank you. You just do what you think is right." As she left with the free biscuit in her hand, Lily's eyes flashed with strong conviction. She not only protects her self-esteem but also inspires those around her. In a moment, she realized she was not alone, and the power of unity turned a difficult day into a victory. When the woman left the bakery, the space suddenly burst into applause. At first, Lily stood silent, a little surprised. She didn't think that her actions would receive such strong support. Applause rang out from all sides, as an affirmation that she had done the right thing. A young woman holding a baby stepped forward first. Her face was radiant, and her eyes were full of sympathy. "You're wonderful," the woman said, her voice tender. "Thank you for teaching us a lesson in courage." Lily bowed her head slightly, smiling and thanking her. The child in the woman's hand looked at Lily, then chuckled, waving her hand. That small gesture softens Lily's heart, and the unpleasant emotions from the previous argument are gradually replaced by warmth. An older man, who had loudly defended her during the tense moment, walked forward with his arms crossed in front of his chest. "You're the reason I always come back to this bakery," he said, in a firm but friendly voice. "Those words are a great source of encouragement." Lily looked at him, smiling sincerely. "Thank you. You're so good." Each customer continued to approach, each carrying a word of support, a respectful look, or a smile of encouragement. A middle-aged woman with gray hair put her hand on the counter, saying, "You handle the situation very well. It's not easy to stay calm like that." A young man wearing headphones stood right behind him, nodding his head in agreement. "You are very cool. Today you are the hero of this restaurant." Lily tried to respond to each of them with smiles and thanks. Although she is not good at being the center of attention, this warm support makes her feel understood and valued. Kevin, standing quietly behind him, smiled proudly. He walked over and gently placed his hand on Lily's shoulder. "You did a great job. Everything you do makes me proud." Lily turned to look at Kevin, her eyes shining with emotion. His words are not only praise but also recognition. She felt the warmth from his support and trust. The atmosphere in the bakery returned to peace. When everyone returned to enjoy breakfast, a small girl suddenly stepped up to the counter. In her hand was a $5 bill, her eyes full of admiration. "I think you're very brave," she said, her voice low but full of emotion. Lily bent down and smiled softly. "Thank you. I was also very brave to tell you that." The little girl pointed to the cupboard. "I want a chocolate chip cookie." Lily wrapped the biscuit carefully and placed it in her hand. "This cake you gave me," she said in a warm voice. The little girl smiled brightly, her eyes lit up, and then ran towards her mother. The distant mother nodded slightly to thank Lily, a simple but affectionate gesture. Looking at the happy little girl, Lily felt relieved. The earlier pressures seemed to dissipate, replaced by a belief in the values she had defended. The client's support not only made her feel less alone, but also affirmed that she was right to stand up for her self-esteem and self-worth. As the busy morning gradually passed, the atmosphere in the bakery also calmed down. The laughter of the customers blends into the sweet aroma of cakes and coffee. Lily remained focused on her work, but her eyes occasionally glanced over the small corners of the salon, where customers were enjoying their food with satisfied smiles. The enthusiastic support from everyone eased the initial tension, but there was still a little confusion mixed with pride in her heart. In the midst of this, Kevin approached her, a gentle but warm demeanor. He held a small envelope in his hand, his eyes exuding respect and appreciation. "Lily, can you talk a little?" he asked, his voice deep but friendly. Lily stopped her hand, wiped her hands clean with a small towel, and nodded. "Yes, of course." Kevin handed her the envelope, his gaze holding her tightly, as if to make sure Lily understood the significance of the moment. "I want to say that you are not only an excellent employee, but also the heart of this bakery," he said, his voice filled with sincerity. "Today, you not only do a good job, but you also inspire us all." Lily accepted the envelope with both hands, feeling her heart burn. Her hands trembled slightly as she opened the envelope, and inside was a handwritten card and a gift card to the local spa. The words on the card were clear to her. "Lily, thank you for being an inspiration and a highlight of this bakery. His calmness, kindness, and strength are something we all admire. Take some time to take care of yourself. I deserve it." Reading those words, Lily's eyes seemed to blur. A feeling of warmth spreads throughout the body. She looked at Kevin, her voice choking. "I thank you, but you don't have to do this." Kevin shook his head, his smile even more resolute. "I have to, Lily. I am not only a good employee. You are the one who makes this place special. This is not only a thank you, but also a well-deserved recognition for what you have done." Lily lowered her head, feeling choked but also full of pride. "Thank you. I really appreciate this." Kevin patted her shoulder, his eyes full of encouragement. "Now, if you want to take a break, take it easy. I've done a lot today." Lily thought for a moment, but then she shook her head, her eyes shining with determination. "I will continue to work. I don't want people to think I'm affected by it. Moreover, I want to thank the customers who have supported me." Kevin smiled with satisfaction, nodded, and then went back to his work. Lily stuffed the envelope into her pocket, her heart full of appreciation. Cards and gifts are not only material rewards, but also symbols of trust and recognition. That made her feel that all the difficulties she had gone through were worth it. When she returned to the counter, Lily felt more confident than ever. The affectionate eyes from customers and Kevin's support made her realize that she was not only an employee who worked for a living but also a part of the community. This isn't just work. It's her mission to spread kindness and courage in everyday life. The doorbell rang when a customer walked in, but the atmosphere in the bakery was still warm. Lily stood behind the counter, feeling overwhelmed in her heart as she thought back to what had happened. She had never felt so proud and confident, even though her heart was still beating fast from the previous stress. Kevin's words of encouragement and compliments from customers gave her an unexpected source of motivation. Suddenly, a little girl, probably no more than 10 years old, came to the counter. The girl's bright eyes did not leave Lily, as if looking at a hero. Lily was a little surprised but also smiled gently as she placed the cookie in her mother's hand. The little girl raised her head and looked at Lily with admiring eyes. "You're so brave," she said, her voice clear, her eyes shining. "You did a great job." Lily paused. A warm feeling spread in her heart. She didn't understand everything, but in her eyes, Lily was like a shining mirror. Lily bent down slightly to be at eye level with the little girl. Her face couldn't help but soften. "Thank you," Lily said, her voice soft and affectionate. "You're so kind." The little girl smiled brightly and quickly turned to look at her mother. Lily quickly took a cookie and packed it carefully. "This is free," she said, handing it to her. Her eyes lit up, and then she turned to look at her mother with excitement, as if realizing something special. Her mother just smiled softly, nodding her head to thank Lily with grateful eyes. Lily felt a gentle wave of happiness rise in her heart. When she and her mother left, some other customers paid attention and quietly observed. A middle-aged man, standing near the counter, approached Lily, his eyes full of respect. "You're a strong man," he said, his voice slow but full of admiration. "It's not just work. You're really an inspiration to us." A woman stood behind him, smiled and said softly, "Thank you for making this place so warm. You're the reason I come here every day." Lily just stood still, a feeling of pride surging in her heart. Every word of encouragement, every look of respect made her feel like she had truly won, not only in the tense confrontation with the other guest, but also in the heart of each person who witnessed the incident. She understands that her actions have not only been a personal victory, but have created a positive wave, spreading strength and courage to those around her. When she looked around, Lily realized that the eyes were no longer curiosity or judgment, but understanding and support. That made her realize that respect and steadfastness are not only created from herself, but also from those around her, who are willing to stand up and defend what is right. She no longer felt alone.